I'm very honored to invite Tiffanie Drayton to the stage. For those of you who were at our leadership day, you got to hear from Tiffanie with a talk about sisterhood and women coming together to support each other through what are incredibly challenging experiences inside of the family court system, and estrangement from children and partners who are not honoring these women. It's very toxic, obviously, and painful. So Tiffanie is also, among other amazing things, she is the author of this book, Black American Refugee, Escaping, I love this, the Narcissism of the American Dream. Love that title, sister. This book I am reading, it is potent, it's beautiful, it's powerful. It's really a memoir. It's a story of her life, her journey, and also her deep sort of reveal around what is going on in the system of this country that really doesn't elevate the right things. And we know that, and we're ranting as I was this morning. We're inside of another wave of this kind of disregard for other. So Tiffanie, I see you're in a car. How exciting.
Yes.
Welcome to our program, and I'm going to step off and leave it up to you, my dear. Welcome.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for having me. And yes, I'm in a car. I had an unexpected, very much welcome visit from my friend who is doing an event not too far away. So I'm riding out to support her in her talk and signing books. And she's been a part of this journey and keeping me sane. So it's just like a real pleasure to be able to hold her down here. So I shared something with Tay that I wanted to kind of share to frame the conversation that I'm going to like indulge with everyone today. And so I'm pretty sure she should have the video kind of queued up. And just to give a brief intro, I was born in Trinidad and Tobago. I was raised in the United States of America after my mother immigrated here back in the 90s. And ultimately, my story tells of that journey that I took to kind of reintroduce myself to a less toxic Black womanhood, one that I found through returning to my homeland. And that's where this video kind of comes in to give you a taste of what that feels like and what that looks like. So if the video's ready, you could play that now.
Some take this carnival lightly. The way we laugh and dance and smile. How melody rolls out of us like the waves crashing all over the hearts of mankind. If you only knew what we've been through, you would understand how amazing our joy is and what a marvel it is to be a Caribbean.
May your heart find peace anywhere you come from. Coulda up, you coulda down. Blessings on my nation. Ooh, yeah. Oh yeah. This city can't hold me. My vibe's too high, and my heart it told me jump right now. You will touch the sky. Feel my love unfolding like a laughing flame. All who did not know me when not done, they gon' know the name.
Thank you so much for queuing that up. I really want to get into why I wanted to share that with everyone, because, you know, Trinidad and Tobago has been such a safe space for me to explore Black joy and Black freedom and Black womanhood and everything amazing and beautiful about what it means to be an African woman, a woman of African descent. And it saddens me, and it has saddened me that I have never experienced that level of freedom in the United States of America. I have never seen that kind of joy in the United States of America with mostly Black and brown faces, unpoliced, just purely, you know, like that little girl in the part, and she's covered in the sun and she's just bathing in her glory and in her happiness. That has really been, for me, having that place to run away to call home has been so powerful for me in this journey of reclaiming my dignity, my womanhood. And I really wanted to start at that place today, because aside from what I want to share about the beauty of that, I really want to share how important it is that we protect this. Because, you know, oftentimes when people think about, you know, Black people and the Caribbean and Africa and all of these distant lands, they don't ever consider what it takes to actually have joy and to actually have happiness. And we do not realize that these are all tied to the economic circumstances of a people. And Trinidad and Tobago is an oil and gas economy, fortunately. And that is how it has been able to sustain its people and provide healthcare and provide education and provide spaces to have carnivals that are huge and celebratory. And I really want people to start framing their ideas about Black people, about minority people, about joy in this regard from an economic lens as well. The only way people can be empowered to be joyful, to be in love, to be experiencing like just abyss and abandon is if they are protected. And we need resources to make that happen. And it's been so inspirational for me to get to this point in my career and be surrounded by so many people who actually care. And so I'm trying to broaden the scope of who America cares about, how we talk about the rest of the world, this global village that we're all a part of, and also how we interact with the political and economic economies of the world. And so that's kind of what I wanted to bring to everyone today, just like I wanted to bring you back to my homeland and allow you to experience that joy and allow you to see what has sustained me. And you know, the last thing that I really want to touch on before I kind of open the floor and make this a discussion, because I just really want to connect with everyone and see what everybody has to say and what everybody thinks. But my book, Black American Refugee, Escaping the Narcissism of the American Dream, it deals with two things. It tries to give a framework through which we can better understand and connect with narcissism by pairing it with the struggle of battling against narcissistic abuse. And people wonder, like, how are these things connected? What is the relevance? But over the course of my studies, because I have been studying about systemic racism for a long time, I've been committed to writing about it for about 10 years. Over the course of this time, I've realized that Black Americans and minority people, even women, we are just locked in this abusive dynamic with a government and with a country that consistently drags us into this conflict. Look what's happening with Roe v. Wade, right? Who would have thought in a million years, all the fight or all of the wins, that we would be at that point? And the sad part is I would have thought it, because this is what the cycle of abuse does. It always allows you to think for a moment that you've won, that you've gotten ahead, and little concessions are made. But ultimately, once we allow the dynamic of abuse to persist, we will never truly overcome it. And that's really my sisters too, aside from just wanting to protect the beauty of joy and love and passion and feeling inspired by that, I really want us to sit down and really understand how abuse is baked into everything that we do as a society, in the way that we treat one another, in the way that we allow government to treat us as a population, in the way we allow human beings to be. There is so much work to be done. And ultimately, I want that work to start at a place of like love and humanness and compassion. So I'm willing, I would really like to open the floor and make this a conversation now.
Yeah, hi, Tiffany. This is Karen Washington. Thank you, Sisterhood. I want to bring in the ancestors into this conversation as well.
Absolutely, yes,
Because I
yes.
understand exactly where you're coming from. And I think you hit the nail on the head. You know, we go through cycles and we feel that we have victories, but then there's silence and complacency. And we feel that we won.
Precisely.
And then we become inactive. And so what we need to constantly do is to be proactive instead of reactive, waiting for something to happen. We constantly have to have that struggle. And like you said, there's a resonance of trauma that runs through us as women of color. And we have to keep in mind that that trauma and that struggle has been with us for so many years. And how do we break those chains is by coming together as women, coming together and fighting the system that is not for us. We see what is happening. It's not for us. So how do we come together to change the system? So at the end of the day, we take the power dynamics out of the hands of men and put it back into the hands of the nurturing element of women.
Absolutely. Yes, yes. Snap, snap, snap.
Thank you, Karen.
There's so much to be said about I discussed recently on the panel what I've been going through in trying to leave this abusive relationship with both the United States of America and my ex, and how I've been embroiled in this legal fight over my kids and how damaging and traumatizing that has been. And yet on the other side of that is these amazing women who have really just this community of amazing women who have made this entirely survivable and thrivable for me. And that's why I'm like, the future is women. We have to really hone in on building ourselves up, our communities coming together, supporting the heck out of each other, and giving these people hell, because that is the only way that anything is going to change. And we know, women know that there has to be this centering of love and humanness and compassion. That is the only future that matters, because that's the only way we're going to save this planet, right? We can't save this planet with full destruction. We can actually mobilize ourselves in the right ways through really embracing the power of femininity and the power of our collective femininity. And I'm just like, I'm so fired up.
There's a question in the chat, Tiffany, of if you could teach all young women in the world about how narcissism is showing up in their life, what would you call out?
Woo. The first place I would start with is that investigation of self-hate. Because what abusive systems tend to do is teach us to undermine, undersell, undervalue, and ultimately hate ourselves. And that, to me, is some of the most damaging and destructive parts about being in an abusive dynamic, that you start to internalize the abuse yourself. And I really want women to sit back with many of these ideas of who they are and what they're entitled to. I have friends who are some of the most amazing, intelligent, progressive, hardworking people I've ever encountered, male or female, and they'll be second guessing their participation in certain spaces. And you have this imposter syndrome. You have this sense that you're not worthy. You have the not wanting to make demands about how much money you make, not wanting to stand for yourself and make sure you're properly represented when it comes to your art. I can go on and on and on. And this place of self-reckoning is where I believe the conversation always starts. Because once we start at that point, we are unstoppable. And I've learned that even for myself. Because how many times did I undersell myself before I was like, no, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that in a personal relationship. I'm not doing that in my business relationships. Run me my check, take care of me. This is what I need. This is what I'm worth. And changing that mindset for myself has been so empowering and amazing. So I would say it starts with that reckoning of self.
I agree that that is fundamental. And I think I even spoke to that a little bit yesterday myself of, don't be too big. Don't take up too much room. Just
Yep.
stick inside the lines. You look at the expression of if you're actually in a room with men, how they physically take up space.
Yep.
And it's all a signal to your place, little ladies. Just, rein it in, keep your legs and arms together. There's so many cues that we're being sent that we're all indoctrinated into.
Yes, and I really want to also point out that if you can empower yourself by learning what the cycle of abuse looks like, that is so fundamental and crucial. And even the tools of abusers. Because one thing, for example, that I've seen come up time and time again, not just in my interpersonal or romantic relationships, but even in my work relationships, where, for example, coming out with this amazing book, and I've worked so hard on this book. It's like my life story. And the publisher is like, these are the options for your book covers, right? And they send me terrible options. And I'm like, these things are hideous. Like, who even did this? Like, I'm outraged. And they start hitting me with this, well, according to our market research, and according to this, they start using all of this terminology to try to make me feel like belittled and like what they're doing is the right thing. And they're like, oh, we've asked this person and that person, and they think it's amazing, to make me second guess myself. And because of my struggle to reclaim my life from a narcissistic abuser, I have learned to stand my ground. And I was like, hell no, what you're doing is hideous. I'm not doing that. And it turned into this huge fight. And even though I felt so unsupported at the time, and it felt like so exhausting, the end result for me was so beautiful. And it's the cover that I have now that was actually done by a Trinidadian artist who is a phenomenal Black man who always does portraits of Black women and really deserved the opportunity. So it's like the fight is worth it. And identifying the ways that people are trying to control you, manipulate how you feel about yourself and your own ability to judge whether something works for you or doesn't. Like, no. Don't let anybody tell you what your truth is. You have to stand in your truth.
That is so true. And there's another question here I think would be powerful for this audience, is thinking about how, white women of privilege can carry on conversations that are respectful and come from a place of loving understanding of people of color. Are there suggestions you can make for us to effectively and lovingly have these conversations?
Oh gosh, this is such a really, really important question, because just yesterday, I always open my inbox to women who are aspiring writers, because I've had the fortune of being uplifted by amazing writers, all women, many of whom are white, all women, barely ever men. And therefore it's like been my imperative to make sure to do the same for other women, right? And just yesterday, I received a manuscript in my inbox with a woman asking me, what is the best way to move forward with her manuscript, this, that, the other. She's a white woman. And her story is actually about going to the Caribbean to marry a Black man. And all throughout the story, she's like referring to her lily white skin and her blue eyes. And she's referring to the man's skin and like fetishizing him. And just, I'm just holding my head like, why? And it's back to that conversation about things starting at a point of self. White women, just like myself, like I put myself on the chopping block in my book so that all people can recognize a reckoning with racism and with race actually always begins with self. Because even for myself as a Black person, I had to investigate systemic racism and understand how it impacted me. I wasn't born with that knowledge. Right. I didn't come out of my mother like, this is how systemic racism works, absolutely not. So if we begin at a point of humbling ourselves educating ourselves and ultimately speaking from a place of love, compassion, understanding, and not being the expert, then there's no way that engaging that conversation is going to be harmful to the communities that we're trying to make sure are being uplifted and being better represented. So all that was a really, really long answer. But the key thing, once again, it still comes back to being in a personal place where there is self-reflection and self-education and self-empowerment. And once you're there, you're always going to approach a conversation humbly and be open to other truths and also to stand in your truth.
Thank you.
Last thing to this, speaking at the New School the other day, and people understand that in the process of trying to assimilate into whiteness, for many European immigrants, there was a lot that was lost in terms of identity. And white people don't really sit back with what that means. And so whiteness has become this kind of default nothingness. It is there, but yet not there. And I always caution white folks, like, learn your history, understand where your family is from, understand what they gave up to ascend in this concept of American assimilation. And in doing so, now you have to stand in a truth. And that truth is many things. Some of it is harmful to other communities. Some of it is empowering to other communities. It's like, once we face ourselves and our history and stand in that firmly, we will be so much better to one another.
I agree. You know, when the person that asked that question responded by saying thank you, because she's afraid of saying the wrong thing, and wanting to, you know, create that connection. And I think that's probably not an uncommon feeling for white women who want to create connection and can say things in a way that really reveals ignorance, right? And it expresses otherness in terms of context and experience. So it also feels like there's this huge opportunity for us as women, from wherever we come from in life, to start becoming much more curious about each other.
Precisely, and curious about oneself. Like, they're actually like, if you are not in touch with your own history and your own family's struggle and your own like what has been lost as a result of being Americanized, like, there's a lot that has been lost. And, you know, that's for all cultures. So many people had to change their names. So many people had to lose their accents. You know, if you really sit back with your grandparents and your great grandparents and your great great grandparents, and you can connect with that. You know, earlier, a speaker was talking about ancestors. Like, reconnecting with this concept of my ancestors has been so grounding for me as a Black woman, because all of a sudden these roots stabilize me and give me a sense of, well, firstly, I have to be in touch with that human side of me that's like, wow, we endured this. Wow. It's saddening, it's empowering, it's enraging, and simultaneously it drives me to do better, to do more. So it's like that process for me of feeling more spiritually inclined towards reflecting on the struggles and achievements and perseverance of my ancestors. It's been so fantastic for me, especially since 2020. So I really just implore everyone to really sit down and think about it.
Yeah, I've thought about it from a completely different lens. As a European, as a daughter of the American Revolution, I know that I had slave ownership in my lineage. And working through the agony of that, and also knowing that people were displaced when those people came over, it's a lot to hold. And I just agree. Others are saying, you know, like, coming to terms and being in a state of acknowledgement that that's in my lineage, and that's a kind of pain I bear that had a direct influence on the agony that you bear.
Precisely. And it really connects us to our humanness, because oftentimes what you see in America is there's this defensiveness And that defensiveness is what draws people further apart.
Right.
If you are not feeling a connectedness to what we have had to do as a humanity to create what it is we are now experiencing, if you feel nothing for the Native American lives that have been lost and continue to be lost as a result of poor policy, if you do not humanize your ancestors and other people's ancestors, like there's no way we can actually humanize this experience and where we are in this moment. Like this is such a huge moment for humanity. Like everything is interconnected. We are so interdependent on the entire globe every single day, for the food that you eat, for the clothes that you wear. If we do not humanize ourselves and humanize one another, we're going to fail to really move forward in this journey of evolution and really and revolution too.
We have just a few moments left here, Tiffanie, and I'd love to just give you the last word of what you want to leave us all with. And I just thank you so much for bringing this conversation to this gathering. This is so important to me personally, that we bring these things into the light, like we did on Tuesday, talking about things that people don't know much about, and to shine a light on those dark corners. It's so vital for change to actually happen.
Absolutely. You know, the thing that I want to relieve people with is this kind of part vision that some years ago. The first part of it was really this immense sadness and an immense sense of agony and loss at projecting into the reality of how the pandemic would impact communities of color and marginalized people, and even marginalized people across the globe. Like, there was so much sadness in knowing that we have failed so many people, right? And then simultaneously, as I've worked through all of those feelings, I started realizing, wait a minute, I'm feeling something. And there have been so many years of my life that I have been so numb and that I felt absolutely nothing. And now I'm starting to realize a lot of the discomfort that I'm experiencing in my life, whether it be, you know, y'all watched me cry like a little baby over my kids yesterday. But yeah, whether it be, you know, the fight with the court system, whether it be this fight against injustice and racism, whether it be, you know, being torn away from my family and not at home, like all of these things are forcing me to feel. And what a better moment to feel rage, to feel anger, and to give myself full license to feel these feelings that I've barely ever felt most of my life, because I've spent my life trying to contain myself and trying to be, and trying not to be angry and trying not to be the angry Black woman. Well, you want to know what? Frig that. I am pissed the hell off. I am empowered, and I am just waiting for everybody else to be pissed the hell off so we can see what we're going to do.
Yes, that's how we're going to rise, right, sister?
Yes.
With love, like the way to just honor, like the very beginning of that beautiful video you shared with us, like that carnival energy, that activation of love and connection. We can also have the fierceness of our not okay feelings about things that are not right, and that we're allowed that, and we can hold them both. And I think it's so.
I just want to say one last thing about the real beauty of Carnival is that it was born out of the desire for Black self-expression when it was not supposed to happen. So like originally, you know, Carnival was for the aristocrats, and enslaved people were not supposed to participate. And they woke up one day and they were like, frig that, we're doing what the heck we want to do. They threw paint around, they danced, they played their music. And that, once again, like reconnecting with my history and understanding the roots of that, that Black and brown joy, it's in my heart. It drives me every day. Like, I have to listen to that song this week just to feel that mix of, like you said, it's tragedy, and simultaneously it's empowerment, it's strength, it's beautiful.
We're losing you, love, but
Oh, sorry.
that's all right. This has been exquisite. Thank you for joining us, and I am so delighted that you're going to be supporting a sister today. She's lucky to have you by her side.
You could say hi, Stephanie.
Hi, Stephanie.
Oh, Stephanie, by the way, y'all should check out her book, Stephanie Land. Her book is called Made. It's super dope. Check it out.
We'll share it with the community. So have a wonderful day, and thank you again, Tiffanie. Really, really meaningful to have you here.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much for having me.
Yes.